This is Peter.
And this is Tom.
And you're listening to History Teachers Talking Podcasts. All right, this is Peter Zablocki and Thomas Reska, and welcome back to our podcast. Tommy, what do we got today?
Everyone thinks that their job isn't great, or they begrudge their job. They say, I wish I could do something else. Basically, give you something today that you're going to look back and be like, well, maybe my job's not too bad after all. After looking at some of these other ones that we're going to look at today. Some of these gruesome historical jobs that, don't exist anymore. Some do, believe it or not. But just horrible jobs in history that there's no way you would want to do them, and be happy that whatever your job is, it's not a leech collector or a things
or
like
a
that.
groom of the stool.
Or a vomit collector and stuff like that. So there's a lot of things out there that these worst jobs in history, basically. And yes, before people start saying we are aware that there was a worst, or there is, I think it's still on, a worst job in history TV show.
Well, I didn't know that was a thing until I started doing research for this, to be honest with you.
I remember seeing it. It's on like the BBC, I think. It's a British TV show.
Okay.
It's different from the TV show with Mike Rowe, right? 30 Jobs.
Yeah.
Similar, I'm sure, but it's the worst job in history, which they do talk a lot about, like rat catchers. Some of the stuff we're looking at today, too, where I'm sure they did episodes on it, but it's a much bigger production than what we do.
Hey, stop it. This is an awesome production. Having said that, though, I think this is, Tom, I think this is like a pick-me-up podcast. I mean, after I started reading this, I was like, you know what? I felt some jobs in my life that I was not like too enthusiastic about, but like, I don't think, any of that comes
I would, I'm definitely not going, I'd pass up any of the jobs on this list.
By the way, what do you think was your worst job?
I don't know. I did a lot of, when I worked in the furniture department of a store that was on the second floor and there was no elevator, that wasn't always fun, but I was also like 17. So it's kind of like, so be it. Those are kind of like the jobs that you have there. But they always say the most difficult job is when you were holding the flashlight for your dad.
That is a very true statement. Oh man, how many times I got smacked.
That's probably the most difficult job you could possibly have. And that makes you tough right there. So it's probably very similar to all the ones that we're going to emotionally triggering as bad as some of the ones that we're going to be looking at today.
I think, it's funny because I think that's different now. Like now I ask my kid to hold a flashlight. He like takes his phone out, presses the button, and he texts while he's holding it. I'm like, this is just ridiculous. This changes everything. Like, go away. Give me a real flashlight.
So,
what is
this? They don't understand the horrors
they don't,
of the 1980s.
They do not. They do not. My worst job, probably, I worked at a hand car wash. I was like 14, 15. It was my first job, 14. And that was a pretty intense job.
Isn't that like child labor laws, man?
Well, 14 is you're allowed to work. That was like my first job. I stopped by and I was like, can I get a job? And they're like, sure. And then it like worked me to like near death. And I was like, oh, this is tough. This is tough. It's tough.
You have to wear like a bathing suit and stuff, and they sprayed you with water.
Of course. Yeah. It was a show every day.
That's awkward, man. You might want to talk to someone about that.
Oh my God! All right, let's do this. All right, you want to get us started, or you want me to get us started? I mean,
go ahead. You can start first. I feel I always start, so go ahead. You can start.
All right. Well, I'm going to start with the one I mentioned before, which is groom of the stool. So this apparently started in like Henry VII, right? And it wasn't actually. It was around until 1901. Edward VII abolished it, but basically, groom of the stool. I mean, think about it, right? It required the holder to take the monarch to the toilet. Like if that was your job, your job was to bring the king to the toilet. And then you had to basically check whatever is going on, down in that area. And then after the king was done, you had to clean him up. As they say that, as gross as that sounds, I mean, I can't really think of anything positive there, but apparently it was a very prestigious post in the kingdom because you had the most one-on-one time and a unique access to the royal. Like
definitely unique. I would say that.
Yeah,
yes,
that would say unique. That is a good one. But the fact that like people thought it was just like prestigious, like this is, oh man, like I'm the groom of the stool, like because you finally got the one-on-one time with the royal and you could somehow like, shape his mind. Could be worse. Yeah, but again, abolished in 1901, Tom? 1901?
Yeah, I know. King Edward VII is the one to say, you know what, we're going to stop this. But it was a prestigious job like you were talking about too. I was reading a lot about it as far as it was also you would talk with the king about his bowel movements basically, and you would go over his diet with him and stuff like that. Like it was an important job, yeah, and you had a lot of power. Man. that was your role, and it was at a very important time. I guess it's very similar. You always heard of stories about like LBJ used to always like hold meetings when he was on the bathroom.
Yep. Or naked,
So
or skinny
yeah,
dipping in a pool while he's
so
holding
those sorts of
cabinet
things. I
meetings.
guess it's little similarities there.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely a job that I would not want. It's not. It doesn't sound
No.
like it would be
No.
a fun one.
Boy, you want to go to Whipping Boy?
I saw it, but I don't have
All
it
right,
on
so
my
Whipping Boy,
thing.
it's kind of very similar with the idea of, like we said, holding a flashlight for your dad. So you're not allowed to hit a royal. Like, you're just not allowed. Like, that's a rule, right? Because especially a
Yes.
lot of royals are considered like chosen by God. They're above human beings. So because you couldn't really hit a royal, well, what if you have like a little prince that is basically not being a good person, or is being, like not behaving appropriately?
Like
Well,
Joffrey.
right,
Game
exactly.
of
Yeah,
Thrones.
yeah, Game of Thrones. Um, well, if you're a tutor or a teacher, or even like someone that has to take care of this child that happens to be royalty, you weren't allowed to hit them. So what they did is they would get sons of different noblemen, which apparently was like a very, very prestigious as well for your child. So these noblemen would give up their children that would become whipping boys, and basically they would hang around, and if the king needed to be punished, the whipping boy would be beaten as a result. Like, they would take the punishment for the prince. And they said it was very similar to like the groom of the stool, in the sense that also very desirable, apparently, by the parents of these little boys, because then the boys would grow up knowing the future king, and potentially it would lead to some form of, not dowry, but some kind of bonuses in life going forward. But I mean, a whipping boy, your job was to get beaten.
Just stand. Well, I guess it didn't require much talent, right? No, but it's going to
No.
definitely scar you. I mean, that's
Yeah,
probably
you
where
would.
the term comes from, right? You're just a whipping boy. You just stand there and take it. That was your job, right? Your job was just to
Crazy.
take the beating, and that's it. You
All
were a
right.
whipping boy.
What do you
Well, someone
got?
who definitely has to have a whipping boy mentality for his next job is one I mentioned a little bit in the opening, right? The vomit collector.
Mm.
So there's this rumor that it's basically a myth that the Romans had these rooms dedicated just for regurgitating food. That wasn't true. But what happened was they would have these massive feasts, and it was commonplace to just consume so much food that you actually could throw up, that you would throw up, because it was considered rude to leave the table. So a lot of these individuals, they would throw up in these special receptacles or just onto the floor. His whole point is you couldn't interrupt, whatever was going on. And it required the service of a special collector, right? The vomit collector that would come around and clean all this up, because again, no one wants it there. So that would be your job. You'd empty out the receptacle, or if it was just on the floor, you'd have to come around and clean it up. And you were basically just waiting around, watching these people just stuff their mouths with as much food, regurgitate it, and then you go clean it up, and they would just eat more. They were like, "Great, I made room. I can keep on eating." And that's
This is
pretty much
crazy.
what their job was. So imagine how like these
Well, and like,
5-star restaurants
oh,
today. You just go around and picking up
puke.
vomit.
Well,
Yeah,
like you just mentioned, the idea was a lot of people just wanted to eat more. So it was like after they ate, they're like, I want to eat more. Like, let's puke this out real quick, make
yeah,
some room, and let's like eat again.
freedom up, freedom
Oh,
up.
talking about eating, I'm sure you saw the Sin Eaters.
The sin eaters, yes.
Oh yeah, you want to do this one? This one's pretty gross too.
So they say they were, which was like the 18th century, and they
Yeah,
were
Wales.
basically,
Yeah, in
yeah,
England, really.
they would hire a sin eater to absorb all of your wrongdoings. So what the workers would do is they would take on the misdeeds of the deceased, and they would do this by eating some bread that was placed on the dead person's chest. So that itself sounds a little crazy, but the process was like a little bit more intense. This is all about like purging of their soul, right? So
Yeah,
the
yeah,
professional
yeah.
sin eaters were common in Wales. Like they would soak up the moral wrongdoings of these people, and that's what they would do. They basically was eat this bread off of the dead corpse,
Dead
because they
bodies.
believe that all like the sins would get absorbed into this bread, and then they would leave it there. It wasn't just like 5 minutes. This was there for a while. They basically eating these spoiled, rotten bread and stuff like that, and that was your job, to eat this bread that was rotting with the corpse, basically. So that
Like,
to
that's
get rid of the
crazy.
sins. I don't know how they even
Yeah.
think this stuff up though. Like this is going to be something. I guess it wasn't a
I don't know.
religion. This wasn't religious. Well, like, it was because of sins, but like it wasn't
Well,
like a
sins. Yeah.
religious. But it wasn't like something that like the church or anything was like preaching. This was just your job, right? Like, that's what I sort of saw.
Yeah, I just don't understand. Like, what if you're the guy that ate the sins? Like, what, you screwed now? Like, what, you going to hell
Well,
right
yeah,
now?
there
Like,
was
I don't
basically
get
it
it.
was basically this person is willing to take on your sins for you.
Yeah.
And again, I don't think
Yeah.
this was a job that, like, I guess was only like the rich could afford. I'm not sure how well you got paid for it, but I don't think like poor people were hiring a sin eater. You know,
Yeah. Well,
it was
since we're
basically just a
talking
way to
about dead,
ensure you were going to heaven, I guess.
yeah. Since we're talking about dead bodies, body snatchers. I feel like I've learned about this numerous times through history, just doing research. But again, 1800s, same thing. Medicine is growing and advancing as a field in such a quick capacity that there's new theories and practices that like revolutionize the entire you know I guess study of medicine in the human body. Well, the problem is that there's a lot of medical students now that are into this, but they need cadavers. They basically
Yes.
need to get dead bodies that they could perform autopsies on and to learn more about the human body. Well, the issue in England was that in 19th century, only executed criminals were allowed to be given for medical purposes, and there was usually around 100 or a little maybe even fewer than 100 people being killed as being executed as criminals in the UK per year at the time. So that was not enough to meet the demand. So basically, there was a new business that came out, and it was the business of body snatching. And you would have these resurrection men, as they were called. They would literally dig up fresh, or sometimes not so fresh, but mostly freshly buried bodies and sell them off to different universities and medical professions. And they got like really good at it. So like they would do it in a way that the point is you want to not really disturb the soil so much because you don't want to alert the actual family that this happened. So they got like really good at stealing bodies, which they would then sell to science. And the thing is that these universities, they should have reported these people because body snatching was considered a crime, but none of these medical institutions reported them because they were happy to be getting bodies.
Yeah, that was what they did. Yeah. And back then, though, if you had like the skeleton in like these medical universities, it was a real human skeleton. There were a lot of serial killers. What was the one? The guy who had with the murder castle. I think we talked about it on previous podcasts.
Yeah. Well,
that's what he would do. That's what he would do. He would literally just Ed Holmes or something like that. He would literally just sell the skeletons to universities, and they were like, "Awesome, crazy, great, we got another one."
Yeah, we got another one. Do you remember there was a story with Ben Franklin? How they were doing a dig on Ben Franklin's under his house in Philadelphia years ago, and they've discovered like bodies, and they're like, "What is this?" And then there was like, well, maybe he was actually buying cadavers to do some, because Ben Franklin was like Renaissance.
Yeah, that's what they would do.
He was probably like checking some
dissect
stuff out.
them and stuff. Yeah, that's how to do things back then.
So body snatchers, that's another one.
Yeah, not one I want to get into. So we talked about obviously when you're young, you do some physical work, right? I know you worked with like laying stones and stuff like that.
Yeah, working with my dad.
I worked with like the furniture stores and stuff. But one that was definitely backbreaking work, literally, is a galley rower. This basically you see those movies like Ben-Hur. You see like this people like rowing these giant boats and stuff like that. And a lot of times you see that the Romans, the Greeks, they were like that they used slaves to row these boats and stuff like that. But in actuality, that rarely happened. You don't really want to use a slave like that. And the analogy I saw a lot was like you wouldn't want a slave or like someone who was like forced to do that any more than you would want them running like a tank or something like that. So usually, if they were slaves, the condition was if you win the battle, you're free. Because these were basically the engines to the boat, right, to the ship. Mm-hmm. But it was back-breaking work. Literally, you would break your back. It was hot. It was it was just you were malnourished just because of the amount of calories you were burning. But again, they typically did feed you because again, the naval commanders were like, "You're our engine. We need you to be alive." But you didn't have any sort of housing or food given to you when you were on land. It was kind of just like, that's it. Only when you're in the boat. And the average life expectancy, most of them died within 3 years doing this. Nuts. Just from like the back. Oh, they were crippled just from like the constant rowing, and they didn't give them proper breaks and stuff like that. And it was just one of those things that just took people out. But it was actually a very common job because it was one that if you could row, that was a job you could do. And it was always promise of greater things, but it was one of those jobs that you wouldn't survive very long doing.
Yeah. So my dad was actually a rowing champion of Poland a couple years in a row back in the late 70s. Like, it's kind of weird. Like, he won medals and champion of Poland. Um, but he said
Sure.
when he was younger, he started rowing. Everyone's like, "Oh, you got to get into sports. It's so good for you, you know." And rowing's perfect. And you know that was his career as a professional athlete. And then by the time he was like 30, he couldn't get out of bed. Like he needed shots into his back. Like it was just like, you know, it is backbreaking. It's kind of
It's
nuts.
just the motion, the constant motion.
Yeah.
Especially like it was one thing back then too. I'm sure they didn't have like the proper techniques and stuff like that,
Yeah.
and it wasn't
Ugh,
like monitored or anything like that. It was just you do it until you can't do it anymore. That's it. Done.
crazy.
Next.
Talk about another sucky job, leech collector. I'm sure you saw
I've
this
seen
one.
this one. Yes.
So leeches were very popular as a healing method in Europe, you know, in history. So essentially, the idea here was that you know the bloodletting. You would attach leeches to a sick person. They would drink their blood, and supposedly, along with it, would take away the sickness, whatever the sickness may be. So, how do you actually get these crawlers? How do you get these leeches? Well, the best way to get them is to actually have them attach themselves to you, and then you take them off. But it's not as easy as it sounds. So, this was there was actually farms that were like designed to do this. When a farm, so you had groups
Like
of
bogs.
usually,
Yeah, bogs.
yeah, and it was usually women that did this. And what they would do is they would get undressed and they would slowly make their way through like filthy swamp water. And you would allow the leeches to latch themselves onto the legs and the whole body. But then the terrible thing is, if you try to remove the leech, right, if you try to pull it off, then the teeth did detach themselves and like stay behind. So the leech is worthless at that point, right? And your wound gets worse because the teeth stay behind. So what these women had to do is they had to walk through these swamps, then had to get out with leeches all over them, and then had to stand there and wait for the actual leeches to get full of blood and themselves detach themselves, really. And before that, and then once that happened, then they could gather them up and basically be like, "Yeah, we got leeches," and then they would go back and do it all over again. Like, talk about a sucky job. Anyway, leech
Not
collector,
fun.
not fun.
Well, another one that
Um,
was gross that like reading about, and of course, so some of these websites listed this one a couple of times, but then showed kind of like reenactment pictures. I was like, why would you do this? Was a fuller. I'm sure you saw
yeah,
this one. And the
yeah,
idea is that it's to help with wool. So wool is naturally waterproof, right? Because of the oils and stuff in it, and from the
hmm
sheepskin. And the grease was also what was made the harvesting, carding, spinning, and the woven process run smoothly, particularly in the Middle Ages. But the cloth that resulted from this was like coarse a lot of times. It was like meshy and could fray very easily. So to solve this problem, the grease had to be removed from the cloth with an alkaline solution. Nowadays we have chemistry, modern chemistry. You can make out
yeah,
you can do that pretty easily. The cheapest and most abundant alkaline solution back in the Middle Ages was urine, but not any type of urine, stale urine. So what a
yeah,
fuller's job was to do was to place freshly woven links of wool into a tub, pour in stale urine, and then stomp it with their feet in order to get in there. And the whole idea though was that this urine had to come from multiple people because you needed gallons of it. So they would go to public toilets and collect it. Think about going like a porta john, collecting all the stale urine in there, putting it in a bucket, and then just stepping in it repeatedly
yeah.
for long periods of
Repeated
time.
for like hours.
Yeah,
Yeah,
hours and stuff. I think like when they make like how they used to see the old videos of them when they make like wine, right, with the grapes and stuff like that.
yeah.
That's basically what they're doing, or they're doing it with urine. And they had to go. They even went to private homes, would like knock on your door and be like, "Hey, do you have any stale urine we can get? This is my job. I'm going to go step on it for a couple hours." Right.
Nuts,
So
nuts.
again, don't do that now. Don't need to do that now, thanks to chemistry, modern chemistry. Yeah, I don't know
Yeah,
that one would kind of. I think just like the. I'm not trying to get graphic, but I guess I am. Just the odor. Just thinking about it, I'm like,
imagine.
it would
Yeah,
just
some of
be
these jobs, like looking
overwhelming.
at it, it was like
Overwhelming.
they were all
Well,
just like body fluid
yeah,
esque.
and it has to be health hazards. Like, there's no way you're not getting sick doing that. Like some of
Mm.
these things, like the leaching too, and the fuller, and like you're gonna get sick. You're gonna get something. That's just we just know that. That's just how these things work. You know.
You're like a master of transitions today, by the way, because talking about getting sick in like unsanitary conditions. I want to go into medieval barbers, or rather, barber surgeons.
Barber surgeons,
Um,
yes, which use the leeches among other
Yeah,
things.
right. So a lot of people, you know, today you go to the barber, and like if you have a good barber, I guess at one point they'll take out a straight razor, you know what I mean, and like they'll actually start like trimming around your hairline, whatever. But when you used to go to a barber in medieval times in Europe, they were basically doctors. They were doctors, dentists, general curer, you know, like cure people.
Anything, yeah,
Um,
anything.
anything you had an issue, you went to it, and actually this stems from the fact that in medieval healing, apparently it used to go to church and priest that would like heal you. You know, they were like the doctors, but they weren't allowed to shed blood, apparently based on religion. So that's why the surgery aspect was passed on to like the next best thing, and that was the barber surgeon. So if you went to a barber, you went there and you're like, I need a haircut and I need you to pull this rotten tooth out from the back. And they would like take pliers. There's nothing
Just
clean
pull,
about
yeah.
this. And just pull. They would you would go in there and be like, oh, I feel really sick. So they were like literally like a lot of times they would just have open wounds. They would cut you up and let some blood out. But if you could pay a little extra, they could use leeches on you so there was no cutting. They would apply like heated cups on your back, all that stuff. The idea was to just like nothing sterile about it. You went to the barber when you were sick. Like you didn't go to the doctor, you went to the barber. It's
They're good with
kind of
their
crazy.
hands, Pete. They're good with their hands.
Man, I mean
That's
I
what
like my
matters.
barber, but man.
Don't
Anyway,
trust
I
no
thought
one
that
else.
one was kind of that was kind of interesting too. The gong farmer, did you see that one?
Yes.
Gong farmer, essentially there's no really modern plumbing. So back in the day, wherever people went, a lot of times people went into like outhouses or they went to and like they literally would dig up a hole and just go into a hole. This was like Tudor England. So you had these crap holes and outhouses, and someone had was so one person's job was really to. I mean, it's fairly simple. You had to walk around, and your job was to collect crap. You would actually, a lot of people would actually died from fumes because they would really go down into. Okay, you had these like holes, I guess, right? That would fall down into like a sewer esque thing, and these people would climb down, crawl in all this because you would actually get paid based on the weight of how much crap you were able
Yeah.
to take out of the city. So like backbreaking labor, but you wanted to collect as much excrement as you could. So, you know, you got the most weight. What else you got? I
Absolutely.
mean,
Yeah.
some of them get a little better. They're not good, but they
Yes,
get
well,
better.
this one I think is definitely a worse job. Let's get away from some discussing just to something like that
Yeah,
are
yeah.
really dangerous. And one of them that's a job that's still today a little different, but I was basically miners, right?
Yeah,
It's
I
not
did see that.
but particularly salt miners. That one was popping up a lot. So like mining itself, like coal mining is, roughly 10% of people who are a coal miner are going to suffer from black lung after 25 years automatically. But as awful as that sounds, like salt mining actually adds even more hardships to it because of the salt, and it induces like severe dehydration in the miners. It takes even years off of them. And if you look, there was a 2016 study when they examined 2,000 ancient Roman skeletons found in a salt mine, and most of them died at the age of 30. And they were suffering from severe arthritis at the time of their death. And it was just simply because of the dehydration that they were experiencing from working these salt mines, hours and hours on end. And they think these particular ones died because it's also really susceptible to outbursts of carbon dioxide or methane gas, which would just quickly knock you out and kill you. And that's basically what they think happened to these 2,000 skeletons that they found in this salt cave. But yeah, it was just a horrible way because you would just slowly like do you think about being like dehydrated from the inside out, and it was just severe arthritis and just pain, and it was just like a slow, painful way to die. And again, backbreaking work.
Well,
And
for
it's
me,
still
I'm
one that people
claustrophobic,
do today.
so like I wouldn't survive even walking in there. When we were in Poland this summer, we went to like the salt mine, however many stories underground, and I was having like a low key panic attack.
Yeah, but these
Yeah.
salt mines now, don't they have them for not mines, but salt rooms? It's like a type of like a therapy, right? Like to help you for like allergies and stuff like that.
Hmm.
I guess it's like
Interesting.
short term. Short term is probably, I
Yeah, you
guess,
don't want
good
to
for
hang out there
you.
too long. Yeah.
Or it could be good, but yeah, you're in there too long, it's just gonna like destroy you. Like the human, it just sucks out the moisture. That's it.
Ugh.
That's your
So this
job.
one's not bad, right? This one's not bad either. I mean, again, these are
Not
sucky
bad.
jobs, but did you see the Punkwalla, where you're basically like a human fan?
Oh, you were
So
just a fan
Punkwalla's
person.
job was to be literally a human fan, and they said that this was during mostly you could see it during the British rule in India and Pakistan, where ceiling fans were kind of just becoming an invention, but they were not motorized by any means. So you had a ceiling fan, but there was like a Punkwalla would basically spend their time standing in one spot, and they would pull this like control, like the string and lever to have the fan operate and keep it going. So this was like the advancement from back in the day when you see like Egyptian times where there was someone that's just like moving this big leaf or something. Here you have a ceiling fan, but there's no motor for it. So you have a person that literally stood there all day. Their job was to just keep on fanning their master, like to keep them cool. Tedious, back-breaking job. you're a slave, so not like you have a really a choice. As terrible as that sounds, but yeah, punk wallet. So not bad, but a terrible job.
Well, another
What else
one
you
that
got?
I saw was takes place during several times in history pops up. Obviously, whenever there was an outbreak of the plague or Black Death, and it was the work of it was a plague bearer, which is pretty much exactly what it sounds like.
Yeah, but why would you
So
sign up for that? I read that too. Like, why would you? I guess I mean, you're not going
you
to
need a
live. You're
job.
not surviving this.
You're not getting a job. So they were basically burials they had organized by community leaders, but they worked, there was so many people dying. So the government hired plague bearers, and their job was to search for and carry and bury the plague, the dead. And they were often housed in churches to keep them separate from the rest of society. There was obviously had the risk of infection, which came with the job, but they also had to contend with like the stench and the festering wounds and stuff like that, and just endless corpses. And we know that just takes like certain people, most people, it's just going to affect your psyche. You're just around death constantly, and that's their job. They're just going around looking to see where people basically just drop dead from the plague. And I'm going to load them in this horse and carriage and then go bury them. That's my job.
Yeah, but
And
did you
again,
notice?
I don't
Like,
know how you don't get infected.
well, that's the thing. Another thing that's crazy is that once you took that job throughout the day, they made you stay locked in with the rest of the bodies. Like, you collected the
Yeah, because they didn't
bodies
want
and
you
you
to get
brought them
anybody
into the
else sick.
courtyard, and they're like, "Yeah, you're not spreading. You're staying here." So, like, I guess if you had money for your family, that's what you're working for. Because I mean, you have to know you're not surviving that, right? I don't know.
Yeah, but
I
it's
don't know.
also one of those things like they have to like they're telling you can't go anywhere else because you're getting infected. And you're still like, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Ugh. Do you see Match Girls?
I
It's
saw that
basically
one.
where
Yes.
manufacture matches, right? Supposedly, it's not disgusting at all, but because all you really have to do is you have to dip a short stick of wood right into this phosphorus solution. But the problem was, and they realized this, shortly thereafter, is that if you were on a job for a few years, again, very monotonous job, just dipping these sticks, you would inhale that phosphorus material, and then what would happen by inhaling this, you would get what is known as phossy jaw, and the gums of your jaw would start to give off this like foul smelling discharge because you're breathing this stuff in through your mouth so much that eventually this absorption of phosphorus would cause women's jaws to not only just smell, but also start to literally glow. And they said that the only real treatment was to remove the entire jawbone, which that kind of makes me think of that painting clock girls, radium girls. That's what it was.
The
The
Radium
radium
Girls,
girls.
yes, Radium
Yeah.
Girls.
And that was in New Jersey. I had
Yeah,
no idea it was in Orange in New Jersey. And actually, that land for so radium girls, just FYI, female factory workers and they're contracted radiation poisoning because they were painting watch dials for like the self-luminous paint using so that way it glows at night the dials, and they weren't actually told that obviously what they were doing that radiation was going to cause them anything. And a lot of time what they would do is they thought it was like paint, and sometimes they would wet the brush with like their tongue and then go back to painting. The main factory issue was in Orange, New Jersey, and what started to happening is their jaws started to completely deteriorate, like to the point
they
that
just
like
fall
their
off. Yeah, they just
mouths would
rot
fall
away.
off.
Yeah,
Yeah, like they would
yeah,
fall off.
gruesome, gruesome.
Gruesome stuff. Yeah, they were known as Radium Girls, and talk about a bad job. And that one's not even that late. That's like 1920s. They wound up, suing the company. There's a lot of crazy stuff about it. Actually, ironically, I'm pretty sure my son just auditioned for a school play about the Radium Girls this afternoon. I'm like, that's got to be a sad play. Radium Girls.
Yeah, well
Like
then
why not
that's
do
what
like
they.
Grease? I don't know.
That's a high school play.
Yeah,
Man,
he's a high school play. Radium Girls. Yeah, he
okay.
auditioned for it today. He's like supposed
Good,
to audition for like the
good
lawyer
luck.
part. Yeah.
Good luck. Good luck.
Anyway, so yeah, Raider Girls. Side note. Well, anything else? What else we got? I mean,
I
there's
mean,
so many. But
there's
let's do a
tons.
couple more old school ones, and maybe we'll finish off with like some new ones that are considered
Well, the
bad
one that I
jobs.
thought was it kind of works with the with a saying, right? You've heard of like a nitpicker,
Mm-hmm.
right? So this actually was the name of a job many years ago during the like medieval period where that was someone's job. What they would do is wigs were very popular because people had wigs during that time period for a variety of reasons. And your job as a nitpicker was to go through the wigs because on the fibers, lice would often be there. They would live off of the dry skin from like the scalps and stuff like that. And their job was to comb through and use lavender oils, which they don't really think did anything, but to get rid of and remove all the lice. You had to weave through and look for all the lice that was inside of these wigs. So that was your job. You had a pile of wigs, all right, delice it. And it wasn't like you spray it and clean. You had to actually go through the fibers and look for the lice and pull them out and then brush them and stuff like that. That just
Ooh.
gives me the heebie-jeebies just thinking about all those little like bugs and
Ooh.
stuff. You're a little kid, like the nurse comes and used to check your head for lice. That's what you're doing. You're just doing that all the time on like random people's wigs.
Ooh. If one that popped up too for me was like bone grubber. Victorian cities, right? You would scavenge
Yeah,
basically for
whatever's left,
bones. Yeah, like, and this could be dog bones, animal bones, any type of
anything.
bones, but any form of bones you could find. So you would look through garbage piles, stockyards, anywhere. You would just try to find bones, whether it was animal bones, cat, dog, human, and you would wind up going and finding these bones, cleaning them, and you would eventually sell them to companies that would turn them into toothbrush handles, teething rings for children, bones, like legit bones.
I
So
like
your
that.
job was to like a
You said it very
bone grubber.
nonchalantly. Teething rings for children. Oh, I found this
Yeah,
dog bone. This is going to be perfect for little baby Petey here to chew on later.
yeah, that's how we roll. That's how we roll. You want to do anything else? I mean,
Well,
that's old
let's get to
school.
some modern. Go do a modern one, and then we'll just
Yeah,
like
let's look. I mean,
close it up. I mean,
they say worst
uh,
jobs, and it's fine. These like are probably bad. Don't get me wrong. I wouldn't know, but looking at like today's worst jobs, they don't really compare to the stuff we just talked about.
no. Well, a lot of them
Like,
are based on like wage, or they're based on just like
yeah,
work and
different. Like,
stuff
they
like
say
that.
the
It's a
number
little bit.
one worst job you could have in the modern world is being a telemarketer. I assume that's a terrible job because people hate you. I mean, you get a lot of
Yeah,
verbal abuse. Is my
I'm
assumption,
sure. Yeah,
right?
yeah,
They'll probably get
yeah,
so happy when someone actually talks to them. Like, even if
yeah. Well,
someone's just
who
polite,
no
I
one
try to
does?
be
Yeah,
polite. I'm always like, thank you, but no, not interested. Thank you very much. Like, I try to be polite. But yeah, that's considered like one of the worst jobs according to many polls in today's world is telemarketer. What else you got?
well, there's some other ones. I think one that surprised me a little bit. Again, minor was still on there, but one that didn't surprise me, I guess. But I definitely was like, oh yeah, that would be a tough job as a slaughterhouse worker. So you
Okay.
work in a slaughterhouse, and they're saying it's like a necessity for like a society that eats meat. But they're saying a lot of times, they're filthy, they're dirty, even with standards that they have, and you're just literally there's animal body parts and byproducts of race. Like the walls are literally covered with blood and stuff like that. And it's just a lot sometimes, and it sounds vile, but it's like again, it's just a necessity. If people are going to eat meat, and you're going to have processed meat, that's one of the things that has to happen. But people have to do that, and you just slaughter animals all day long.
Ugh. Going along with like telemarketer, customer service advisor, like, don't shoot the messenger idea. Like, when you call because like something's like not right with your cable. And of course, like, oh, did you try turning it on and off again? And you're already so done by then. You're like, yes, of course I did that. Like, again, you try to be kind, but like that could be a little, The other one that I saw was promotional mascot. Where
Yeah,
you have to like dress as a mascot and just run around because there's a store sale or something. Like, I see people, so, when you see them standing on the side of the road with like
yeah,
signs
just
like Ashley's just having a furniture sale, and I always feel so bad. Like, there have been times in my life where I've literally stopped and given them cold water, like just bottles of water, because you're just like, dude, that job must suck. But again, I mean, a
I'm
job's a job
sure
at the
it's
end of
not.
the day.
It's not hazardous necessarily, I guess. As
Did you
some of the
see
ones we
pet?
were
You
talking
could be
about
a
before.
pet food taster.
I saw that one, and they said some people actually enjoy it, but I don't know why you would
Oh, ugh.
want to do that. Again, if you have the palate for it, why not? I don't know how well it pays. I don't know why it matters what the dog food tastes like, though. Like
I
dogs
mean,
are going to eat it.
yeah, but some people, like, remember, we live in 2022. I've just literally recently read an article that what used to be let's buy a house and have children, the American dream. Now it's like let's have a condo and let's like if you get a dog, that's like the biggest step in a relationship now. Like, that's like a child.
Yeah.
You have a dog. So I mean,
Okay.
and obviously, like, we've had dogs, you and I. Like, you treat them like family. So I guess. I mean, I'm not
Yeah,
going
but
to eat their
I'm
food.
not going to eat their food. I didn't even when my
Yeah,
kids were younger. I didn't want to eat that baby food either. I didn't do
oh,
that.
that's gross. Yeah.
Like I wasn't doing that. I'm not definitely not going to eat dog food. I do remember like at times making my sister eat dog biscuits.
You're a terrible person.
I know, I know for a fact I would like put her in a headlock and
Wait
make
till
her
I
eat,
see her. If you're listening, I'm so
make her
sorry.
eat dog biscuits. I remember doing that at times.
Terrible
I
brother.
never, I never had them. Not my thing.
Uh, portable toilet cleaner today. It was very similar to what we talked about in ancient history stuff. I mean,
Yeah, only you're going to be
right?
a little more sanitized and stuff like that. You're in like
Yeah.
suits and you have the mask. It's not just cleaning it. You're not selling it. You're like the collectors from that you were talking about earlier. But yeah, they're.
Do you see the average pay for a portable toilet cleaner per year?
Was it $51,000?
$51,000. And then you have the roadkill collector. Remember, what's the name of that place when we were younger? We used to go there to for the zoo, and they would like bring roadkill all the time to feed the lions.
Space Farms.
Space Farms, great place. I mean, I think it's Americana, but I remember like when they would bring, they had a deal where there was roadkill. The roadkill was dropped off at the zoo, so that way, the animals could eat it. But that's your job. You're a roadkill collector. I mean,
especially in like around here in Jersey, with all the deer and everything else that you
or skunk. Lots of skunk.
Skunk, yeah, fox, bears occasionally, but it's mostly deer, raccoon. And you need to come around and collect that stuff. Well, I guess a lot of it probably falls under like the parks department. But yeah, they're there. They got to pick it up, and they need somewhere to put it.
Craziness.
The only one I saw that was still like intense was the crime scene cleaner.
Yeah, cleaner. Yeah.
So you don't only see this on like those CSI shows. They come in and they get all the information and they find out who's doing what. But then the crime scene cleaner has to come in and they have to clean it up. I mean, a lot of times these places, are in a housing development or someone's house or something like that, a restaurant, let's say, and they need to clean it up. And sometimes it can take hours because they have to, really scrub and get all of the blood stains, body parts, fluids and stuff like that, other gory things removed from the scene. And it has to be like as if it was never there. So that's your job. You have to clean it and then disinfect everything. It's just going to be morbid, too.
Yeah. Do you see one of the most dangerous jobs right now is being a logger?
Yeah, the like 66 loggers die every year.
Yeah, just cutting trees.
Yeah,
that's nuts.
Well, I had a lot of students. They said it was a dangerous job. This was years ago. They were going to work up in Alaska, and they were going to work on the pipe. They were going to be underwater welders.
Dude, that's supposed to pay so much money to be an underwater welder.
It pays a lot of money, but it's dangerous because if something goes wrong, you wear this like underwater suit that like has a current running through it to warm up hot water inside of the suit, because otherwise you'll freeze because you're doing that. So they paid a lot of money, but you also, if like there was a suit malfunction or something like that, that's it. You would just freeze to death almost very quickly. So there wasn't much they could do to help you. So that was one reason why it paid so much. Some of these other jobs that we talked about didn't really pay much. I don't know how much a vomit collector got paid back in the Roman times. But underwater welding. There you go.
That's the way to go. Maybe we should change our professions. Maybe this is the way to go.
You know what? Why not? I'm sure my wife would love to move to Alaska.
Hey, it might be adventurous. Come on.
Yeah.
Change your scenery.
Maybe.
So anyway, I mean, I think this was a pretty good introduction to some crazy history, bad jobs. And we kind of capped it off with some modern jobs that people consider to be bad. Who knows? Maybe in 100 years, they'll look at these jobs that we mentioned just now and say, these were the worst jobs of the early 2000s.
Jobs ever, yes. Who knows?
Yeah.
Could happen.
Or rather, the 20s. We're in the 20s now again.
Yeah.
Anyway, so thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in once more. We really do appreciate you tuning in. If you ever need to reach us, you could find us at www.historyteacherstalkingpodcast.com. We are here if you have any questions, comments, or reactions. And I guess that's it. We'll see you guys next week. Enjoy.
Stay safe, everybody.
I hope everyone enjoyed our podcast, and if you would like to email us, you can do so at historyteacherspodcast@gmail.com.
A BetterHelp ad. Therapy isn't just for times of major challenge. It's a valuable tool for anyone wanting to improve their well-being. It can help you develop healthy coping skills, set boundaries, and support personal growth. BetterHelp makes it easy to get matched online with a fully licensed therapist right from your phone. No commuting, no waiting rooms. And you can switch therapists at any time. Sign up at BetterHelp.com and get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp.com.